athletic, but I love to watch sports.
Yes, you do.
It's so much fun. I wish I was more athletic also for my kids. I would love to go play catch with my kids. And so, although I may not be very physically adept, there's another way we can play catch.
That's true.
Like the
That
segue?
was pretty nice.
Smooth, wasn't it?
They want to
No
know
one even know.
How
How do we play catch? We're talking about communication. And communication at its root is playing catch. When we start talking about interpersonal communication.
It's a good game of catch.
It is.
Because when you play a good game of catch, you throw it in such a way that you want the other person to catch it.
That's right.
And they make effort to catch it because that's the fun, is throwing it and catching it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not much fun when you throw it and you either throw it over their head or...
Especially with kids, then you have to run and get it.
Well, and so often when we start thinking of communication, what we start thinking is it's my job as a speaker, that I'm the one that has the only job in this. But the reality is, I can throw a ball, but if the person's not engaged, and we think they are, then we do hit them in the head with the ball.
Yeah.
But if they are engaged and they didn't catch it, it may not be their fault. I may not have used words that were good,
right,
and said it in a way that can help them actually catch the ball and catch the words. And so that's where the listener's job is to try to make sure that they have a mitt on to be able to catch what's being said.
Yeah. Let's break down both of these a little bit to unpack some of the things that we think will help you have great communication. The first is to assert yourself, to say what matters most. And so
you mean aggressively say it?
No, preferably not.
No.
Assertive.
Oh, okay.
One of these things is not like the other.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that we are thinking through how we feel and what we want, like what our desires are. I know that I don't get everything I want, but I want to think through what I would like so I can assertively speak up and ask for it. And if you've ever been to counseling, they talk about using I language. It's really helpful to say, I would like to make a budget for how much we're going to spend on birthdays this year, or on Christmas, or on vacation. And when I speak up and say, I would like this to happen, or I'd like us to do this together, this is me being assertive. Now, You're right. Some people are very aggressive naturally with their communication, and some people would rather just avoid it, all day long.
Or they would rather avoid it and then be passive aggressive and do things that will hurt later on.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and none of those things are going to win. They're not going to help you win with relationships.
And so when we start talking again about assertive, that's an easy definition to me is focusing on my wants and needs in a healthy way, being able to explain them to the person, whoever that is, right? Yeah. And so when I start thinking about my needs, if I want a budget, okay? Well, why do I want a budget? So it's not just I want a budget, right? But think through it. That's that whole processing of, well, why is this important to me? What am I feeling if I have a budget? What am I feeling if I don't have a budget?
Yes.
We've talked about lists, and if I told Abigail, you cannot make a list, right? We're going on vacation, you can't make a list.
That would make me so twitchy.
It drives me nuts when you make lists, right?
Aww.
Right? It would make it really difficult for her.
That would be hard to be me.
And at the same time, she's like, look, I need you, Scott, to sit down and make a list of everything you're going to take on the vacation. That'd make me twitchy.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right? So, but instead to be able to say, this is what I'm feeling. It makes me feel twitchy if I don't have a list, or I feel secure when I do have a list.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, in the moments of life, really great memories are made in certain traditions and friend and family moments throughout the year. And I think that those are things that a lot of us value really highly. And so if you want friends to be at this thing, or if you want it to go a certain way, or if there to be certain food there, or a certain event, little part of it, it's really important for you to say that, because I don't know about you, but I'm not a mind reader yet. I am working on it, y'all. And when we get it figured out, I'm going to sell it. But no one can read your mind.
They can't.
You can't know unless you say, hey, this is important to me.
Right. So going back to our little analogy of or illustration of playing catch, right? So on the negative side, if I'm being passive, that means I'm not throwing the ball at all.
Yeah.
And that's when I want you to read my mind, and I want you to catch it.
Yeah.
But you didn't throw anything. Well, that you should have known that I threw it, even though it's invisible, right? It's not fair to somebody.
Right.
So instead, before you get instead, aggressively is your 99 mile per hour fastball. You're throwing it at the person's head. They don't catch it, and they're kind of scared because they don't want to get hit in the head with a fastball. I've been hit in the face with a softball, and that literally broke my face. I can't imagine being hit in the face with a baseball. But So you start throwing it. You're not trying to have the person catch it. What you're trying to do is dominate. Passing or passivity is also domination because you're refusing to engage. Or passive aggressively is like throwing, I don't know, throwing a curveball and just expecting them to know what you're doing. It just doesn't make sense. What you want to do is be assertive. That's what's different. Assertiveness is saying, okay, here's what I'm trying to communicate. Let me throw it to you in a nice softball, 90-degree, or whatever they call it, the big arcs, and let me get it to you so that you can catch the ball really easily.
Yeah. So we really want to challenge people, and we do challenge people every week. It's really important to be healthy with your communication, to think about how you can throw the ball in such a way that someone has a shot at catching it. You need to speak up, or you need to speak differently so you can do that. But speaking's only one half.
Yeah.
There's another side.
What?
Listening.
Oh, listening.
Listening is so important, and honestly, yes,
I know. I always do that.
We stink at listening. Really, as a society, we're pretty crappy at that. And but there's hope. You can learn how to listen, and listening is worth working on. It's worth making some time and effort because it's like a muscle. You can grow it. You can take your listening muscle to the gym and work it out every day by listening to the people that you care about most. Now, one thing that I'd like to challenge you is just to initiate asking someone you care about, especially someone who maybe thinks differently than you or might have a different opinion on how this event is going to go. Maybe ask them what's important to them. Hey, this is coming up. What do you value most about it? What would you like to see happen? And in that way, it is loving. It is so loving to listen to someone like that.
And then those questions, you can kind of put your listening with it. And so if, Abigail was saying how important it is that she have a list, or she gets twitchy and have a list. And I'm like, okay, so what I'm hearing is lists are important because, right? And is that right? And it's what we call active listening. If you've been in counseling, it's called active listening. You don't have to say, so I hear you saying, but you can say, so if you don't have a list, this is what you're feeling, right? You can just keep it that short. But if you're not actively listening, it's so easy to start thinking about what you want to say. Means you've taken your eye off the ball, right? And so you're not being a good listener now. You're thinking, okay, how am I going to throw the ball back? Ow! It hit me in the face, right? Or it zoomed by me, and I heard just part of it, but I'm like, so why don't you like, or why do you like, or why don't you like Liz? No, I said I do like Liz. Oh, did you? Right.
And by then you've missed the opportunity to be loving and kind. And we see this happen again and again, you guys. We see people missing each other because they're not fully listening.
That's right.
And it just causes more trouble.
Yep.
I really encourage you to reach out and ask people. And another thing we recommend is scheduling time to talk so that the other person might be ready, prepared mentally, emotionally, spiritually to have the conversation. And then you could actually just listen and not share what you think. The whole conversation is, we call it a seek to understand conversation. And that's when you are asking questions, but you're not getting defensive, you're not telling them why they're wrong, and you're not even sharing your ideas or opinions, but you're really just there listening. And this is valuable, and you can always have another conversation later where you share something that you think.
Especially if somebody is in the place of the emotion. If they're really upset, say they're upset with their boss, to hear you say, well, you know what you should do. They're not trying to solve anything. They're venting. They're expressing to you because they care about you. If you're going on a family vacation, or say you're on it with relatives, and your spouse or family member is saying, expressing frustration about your parents or whatever that might be, or friends that you're with, let them just express it. Let's not try to solve it. Say, well, you know what you could have done differently. Doesn't help, but instead, so that's that really knowing and being self-aware of where the other person is as well, and that relationship awareness to know what they need at that moment. But also, it's not about having a solution. So often we go into conversations saying, I can solve something.
Right.
Let me tell you what we need to do differently. But instead, a seek to understand literally is intentionally not trying to have a solution. Instead, it's giving the opportunity just to hear what's going on. And you may have to have two. Abigail may share why she loves Liz. I might share why I don't like Liz. And then we kind of come to a conclusion at the end. And we'll talk about that in a little while.
One last thought I have about communication, this playing catch idea, is to make sure you're communicating with the person that you actually have the issue with. I think one of the ways we get into trouble is we talk to somebody else about it. So if you're talking to your spouse who's talking to their parents or their sister about an upcoming family event, then you can get in a lot of trouble because you're upset with someone that you aren't having a conversation with.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just caution you to try not to do too much he said, she said, but to be on speakerphone or multiple people talking at the same time, and to really talk to the person that really you have an issue with or something to solve together, because otherwise it's triangulation and it strangles people, it strangles relationships, and it can really upset the good stuff that you're trying to work towards. So play catch with the person that you want to communicate with.